According to the FAA data, U.S. airlines and cargo operators have reported approximately 50 smoke, fire, or overheating incidents involving lithium-ion batteries in 2025 alone. Yeah, 50. And we still have almost half a year left in 2025. So that really got the FAA's attention. So in a newly released SAFO, or Safety Alert for Operations, the FAA is warning that the next time you pack your tablet, laptop, or iPhone, it could be your device or worse, the pilot's electronic flight bag that turns your peaceful flight into a speeding ball of flames at 35,000 feet. Oh, not only that, but the FAA warns that the Halon fire extinguishers used on airplanes worldwide are useless against runaway lithium battery fires. So you better stop by Costco and pick up a case of water on the way to the airport, because only water can extinguish these dangerous runaway thermal events.
Lithium batteries are capable of overheating, leading to a process called thermal runaway, which can cause the sudden release of the contents of the battery as heavy smoke, flammable gases, flames, or in some cases, the battery can explode. Once one cell in a battery pack goes into thermal runaway, it produces enough heat to cause adjacent cells to go into thermal runaway. The resulting fire can flare repeatedly as each cell ruptures and releases its contents.
Well, dated September 25, 2025, the FAA has issued a new safety alert to airlines warning that lithium-ion batteries carried by passengers and crew alike continue to pose a growing fire risk aboard commercial flights. And the timing of the new FAA alert reflects a rise in reported lithium battery fire incidents. Several recent cases even forced flight diversions and caused passenger injuries. And with 4 more months left in 2025, the FAA considers these events urgent enough to alert the airlines to the runaway, pun intended, in cases of runaway battery fires on planes. However, the FAA, being the FAA, of course, is not proposing new regulations to enforce these suggestions. They will only do that if it's too late. However, the tone of the SAFO suggests mounting concern inside the FAA about the hazards of lithium batteries and the hazards they can pose. With a series of events this year alone, regulators appear determined to keep the pressure on airlines, manufacturers, and passengers to reduce the risk of in-flight fires. One recent example came on August 5 when a passenger's cell phone overheated on an American Airlines flight from Dallas to Madrid. Smoke filled part of the cabin, the FAA said, and the passenger was injured, while damage to the aircraft floor delayed the flight. Just delayed the flight? Anyway, just less than a month earlier, a laptop overheated on a flight from Chicago to Portland, Oregon. The crew moved the device into a bag in the lavatory, but the situation grew serious enough that the pilots had to divert to Casper, Wyoming. Okay, so let's look at the SAFO, and then we'll finish up with some more news on the subject. So like I said, the SAFO is dated September 25. The subject line, managing the risks of lithium batteries carried by passengers and crew members. Purpose: this SAFO highlights the risks associated with the carriage of lithium batteries in aircraft passenger compartments. In addition, it emphasizes the importance of identifying all potential hazards and implementing appropriate risk mitigation strategies to manage lithium batteries' thermal runaway events, which are self-sustaining, uncontrolled releases in pressure and temperature. The background says the FAA data shows a number of safety events involving lithium batteries. Lithium batteries, including power banks and portable chargers, can act as ignition sources and potentially start onboard fires, and have started onboard fires. Lithium batteries stored in passenger overhead bins or in carry-on baggage may be obscured, difficult to access, or not readily monitored by passengers, that means you and me, or crew members. Because of this, detection of thermal runaway and firefighting measures may be delayed in flight, increasing the risk of safety. Okay, now this is discussion part. This is really eye-opening. The FAA data underscores the critical need for operators to adhere to their safety risk management processes. Operators must identify and mitigate potential hazards and related risks associated with the carriage of lithium batteries transported in the passenger compartment, because Traditional firefighting methods should be revised to accommodate the appropriate response to a thermal runaway event. Now, this next part is concerning because use of halon extinguishers can briefly suppress open flames. However, they do not halt the thermal runaway process. Put simply, halon extinguishers don't work. Then they explained to the airlines that the primary response involved using large amounts of water to cool the battery and suppress flames. Cooling the device with water is essential to prevent the reaction from continuing until all cells have discharged their energy. So it's important to note that halon will only temporarily halt the runaway fires, but only water can extinguish it. So like I said, stock up at Costco before you fly. Costco, call me. Then the SAFO goes on to tell airlines to review their lithium battery firefighting processes and procedures, such as ensure crew members recognize the different lithium battery thermal runaway stages, assess onboard safety equipment such as fire extinguishers, water sources, and fire containment products to ensure they have the capability to mitigate onboard fires from lithium batteries. Evaluate aircraft components, emergency equipment, and passenger items that may become involved in a thermal runaway event. Review procedures that minimize the potential for smoke inhalation by passengers and crew members. They also recommend to advise passengers on what lithium batteries are, where they are found, and how thermal runaway occurs, and the associated risks. Instruct passengers and crew members to carry lithium batteries in locations where a potential thermal runaway is visible and accessible by passengers or crew members. Provide passengers and crew members with information on the safe handling, stowage, and carriage of lithium batteries, including how to prevent those batteries from being crushed or damaged. Yeah, don't crush those batteries. I've done that, and it's not good. Educate passengers in the prevention of short-circuiting, such as storing lithium batteries in plastic bags, taping and covering terminals, or keeping lithium batteries in protective cases. And finally, like I said, the FAA isn't proposing any new regulations, but the SAFO ends with the following recommendations. Operators and designated personnel, e.g. directors of safety, directors of operations, program managers, and directors of training, should consider the information provided in this SAFO when developing or reviewing their programs, policies, and procedures for managing the risk associated with lithium batteries carried by passengers and crew members. Now, I know all of this seems obvious to some, maybe many of us. However, industry experts note that while cabin crews train regularly on battery fire scenarios, passengers still remain unaware of the dangers. John Cox, pilot and aviation consultant, says that many people still don't realize how serious a smoking laptop or iPhone can be. And they can be very serious. Let me tell you, like I said, I've done it. The key is rapid recognition and immediate action. So just to wrap this all up, basically it's up to all of us before we ever get on a plane to be conscious of which bags we pack, our electronic devices in, where we store them on the plane, and the warning signs to look for in a runaway lithium-ion battery fire on a plane. Oh yeah, and water. Bring plenty of water in your carry-on just in case. And with that, it's your turn. Let me know what you think about lithium-ion battery runaway fire re-explosions in an airplane. I want to know. But I won't know until you let me know down below. And, consider subscribing and liking. And as always, until next time, this is Maximus